A Tiny Revolution features adults having adult conversations, which means that adult language is probably going to be present, just so you know. Hey there, you're listening to A Tiny Revolution, a podcast featuring conversations with ordinary people living revolutionary lives. My name is Kevin Garcia, and welcome to episode 44. And y'all, I'm excited about this episode for a few reasons. One, I'm always excited about the episodes. But two, I get to talk about something I rarely speak about, and that is the fact that I'm actually, indeed, a fraternity man. I joined Sigma Phi Epsilon fraternity in the fall of 2010, and I went all the way through the processes to become a brother mentor, and it was a really powerful experience for me, and I still have my closest friendships ever from that time in my life. So yeah, for me, I was kind of an exception to what many of us see on the television. Now, I'm going to completely acknowledge the fact that fraternities have been the source of some serious patriarchal, misogynistic, racist bullshit that has happened on colleges' campuses, especially to women. So I will fully, say that all the things that you've heard about, any sort of bad press we've gotten, it's all true. And I will say that it is a problem that needs to be addressed immediately, and still needs to be addressed on many college campuses across this country. Interestingly enough, though, I will say that for all the Animal House-style craziness you see on TV and movies, most of it is hyperbole. And many times there are beautiful exceptions to how Greek life is often portrayed. And me and Blake, who is my guest on the podcast today, our stories happen to be two of those exceptions. But before I get into that, I just want to make a quick announcement about GCN. If you're listening to this on the day it comes out, I'm already going to be in Denver. And I'm going to be leading worship and a workshop at the Gay Christian Network National Conference happening this weekend in Denver, Colorado. My session, which is called Bridges Over Battle Lines, It's a workshop about how to move the conversation around sexuality and faith beyond debate. So if you want to get some really good tools on how to, not just be fighting to defend your existence, come to my session. It's going to be on Saturday, 3 o'clock during session C. I'm also going to be around the whole weekend, so feel free to just grab me, say hello. If I can grab lunch or coffee with you, I will do my best. I am going to just say up front, though, I'm really tired these days. I'm dealing with a lot in my personal life, and with some family stuff. So I need you to be patient with me. And if I can't hang out with you, it's simply because I don't have the energy. Not that I don't like you, but I also need to take care of myself. Cool? Anyways, additionally, before we jump into the conversation, I want to tell you about Patreon. And I'm sure you already know about this because you listen every week. And my question is, if you listen every week, have you become a patron? Are you helping provide support to make this happen? If not, I'd like for you to consider becoming a sustaining partner. Why? Because podcasts are free, but they do cost something. They cost time, money, energy, and I'm doing work on this end to help make this something amazing. And I don't want to sell ad space on here. I don't want to become I don't want to become that guy. But it does mean a lot for you to become a sustaining partner so we can make more and better content. And the thing is, this work is helping people. Later on in the podcast, I'm going to share a story that a friend of mine shared with me about how this work and the content we're creating together is making a difference in the lives of real people in places other than small town USA. So to learn more about becoming a sustaining partner, go to patreon.com/thekevingarcia and learn more. Now that I've talked your ear off, let's get into the conversation. So me and Blake Haney, or Blake Haney and I suppose, because grammar is important, we met online through a Facebook group for gay and queer Sigma Phi Epsilon brothers, and before that, I thought I was the only one. I mean, I knew that there had to be more, and people in my fraternity were gay, but I had no idea that there was such an extensive network of other gay and queer brothers that existed anywhere in the country. And that's where me and Blake connected, back when I posted my first ever coming out blog. And we've been homies ever since, and then in the middle of last summer, we sat down on the Skype line to talk about being gay and being college Greeks, and also how our experience in SIGAP really shaped how we approached our faith, and still kind of shapes how we approach our faith now. So though he is a Nashville-based individual, Blake is currently a candidate for a Master's of Theological Studies at Isla School of Theology in Denver, Colorado. Between being really good at Twitter and becoming sober in 2013, he's also a songwriter from time to time, and he's my brother. He joined SIGAP during his undergrad, and for him it was a very interesting experience, not only as he was wrestling with how to be a man along with his queer identity, he was also wrestling with his faith. he's going to cover a lot of his story in the interview, and Lord knows that I'm going to geek out during this interview a few times over shared experiences, but I think you're really going to enjoy this. So in this conversation, we're talking about how being fraternity man taught us to, value our own personhood as gay men, and also gave us the tools to strengthen our faith. And yeah, it's good. It's real good, you guys. So grab a glass of whatever you fancy, call a friend into the room, and if you're a sig up listening to this, share this with your friends, because this is good press, honestly. Anyways, this is my conversation with my brother, Blake Haney.
I had zero intention of joining a fraternity, which seems to be a lot of sig ups stories. But my sisters had even mentioned something before I moved to Clarksville, which, side note for listeners, this is how small the world is. Mm-hmm. So Kevin was a sig up in Virginia, correct?
That is correct.
Okay.
Virginia Pi.
So Virginia Pi. So I moved from home, which is Chattanooga, to Clarksville, Tennessee.
Which is where I grew up.
Exactly. Yes. Teeny tiny world. Mm-hmm. We could have known each other had you not moved.
Thanks a lot, military.
Thanks a lot. I thought that's what it was. I thought it was military. So my sisters were like, "Are you going to join a fraternity?" And I was just thinking, where is this coming from? Because my sister wasn't in a sorority. My oldest sister wasn't in a sorority. And that just wasn't, that just wasn't a thing. And it always so happened that people that I saw over the summer who were a grade above me before going to college, so they'd already had a year under their belt, would say, "Are you going to join a fraternity?" And my mother would always be standing right beside me. And I was just like, no, not going to do that.
Not
probably.
My thing. Not my thing. I'm a good Christian boy.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Did you grow up in a Christian tradition?
I did. We were raised Independent Baptist, which, not a far cry from its Southern Baptist sibling. But both of my parents taught Sunday school, and my grandfather was a deacon, and so we were pretty firm in there. So obviously there would have been a picture or an image of the fraternity boy lifestyle. If we're going to talk about lifestyle,
alternative lifestyle choice.
An alternative lifestyle choice. But we were driving up to move me to Clarksville, and my mom was riding with me, and it was just really quiet. She said, "You can go through recruitment if you want to," and I was like, okay.
Because this isn't even something that you're thinking of, but everyone is just like...
Right. Right. So
there must have been something about you that just screamed fraternity, apparently.
I guess so. Even though I'm an introvert, I'm an extroverted introvert. I can turn it on when I need to. I can go from person to person. I can pretty much talk to anybody as long as your vibe's good. But yeah, so I got up there, and my roommate, who was also my RA, was sig up. And so the very first night, in the dorm, he said, "Hey, do you want to go eat at Johnny's?" You know what Johnny's is, right? Is that, oh man.
Well, the thing about me living in Clarksville is I lived out in rural Clarksville, closer to Dover, really.
So you were, okay. Oh gosh, Dover.
Yeah. So Montgomery County, way out there.
Yeah. Okay. So Johnny's was right across from campus. At the time, it was this 24-hour burger joint. They're infamous for what's known as the bun and cream, which is just a fried honey bun, on a grill, one of those old school grills, and ice cream on top of it.
Now that sounds like heaven.
Yeah, it also sounds like diabetes.
Absolutely.
And so the first night we went there, and he said, "I got to run by the sig up house for a minute." And I was just my stomach just started nodding up, and I was like, "Oh, okay, cool." So we go, and in my head, I'm thinking, keg in the front yard, half naked people or completely naked people going to be running around. Like, it's going to be a
Animal House.
Animal House, right? Yeah, exactly. And we pulled up, and every light in the house was turned off. And I was like, okay, like, what's about to happen to me? Like, do they know I'm coming? And so we walk in, and there's no one home. There's no one home. And so there goes stereotype number one from my head. So over the next couple of weeks, the more I met people, I met a lot of different guys in the first few weeks of school. And I mean different. Like, they were all, like, there was no carbon copy of another person, which was very, very influential for me because I was closeted. And so I was like, maybe there's room for me here. Somewhere in here.
So did you know, I assume like you knew that you were gay from like teenage years, yeah?
Oh yeah. I actually, to be honest, probably knew single digits without knowing a word for it. Without having a label to put on it. And then definitely by teenage years when
hormones kicked in.
Hormones and middle school and all of that stuff kicked in. I definitely 100% knew at that point.
So you're closeted, you're meeting people, and then what happened?
And then I went through recruitment. I went through the recruitment process.
And y'all allow recruitment in the fall, right?
Right.
Like you can join as a freshman.
Right. You can join as a freshman, first semester, no deferred recruitment or anything.
Yeah.
A majority of my friends went to the University of Tennessee at Knoxville. So I wanted to kind of do my own thing. Two guys I went to high school with went to Austin P as well. We all decided we were going to go through recruitment, and we were all set on Sig Ep. So we get in there the first night, which was room rotations, where each fraternity has kind of their setup and their spiel and all of that stuff.
It's like, here, 10 reasons why you should join Sig Ep, because we got great grades, great people with opportunity.
Exactly. Sigma Chi showed us their housing, like the blueprint for their new house. It's 12 years later, and that house still hasn't been built. Whoops. No shade, but
like a little bit of shade.
A little bit of shade. So we get in there, and so like there's an odd group. So we're kind of placed in this holding room while the other ones are going. So like each, I don't know the math. So we're all sitting there. They go over the requirements for recruitment, just as a reminder for people apparently. And my two friends, they say the GPA, and my two friends look at each other and then look at me and then say, well, we're out. So they get up and walk out. And so I'm left here to go through this recruitment experience by myself. I was mortified. But I felt like it took forever to get to Sig Ep's room because there were people I knew in there. And that was another indicator, like, okay, I need to see people I've been talking to for the past bunch of weeks. And so I finally get in there, and I don't want to leave. It gets to Friday, and I remember this day. Like, for everything else I've forgotten over the 4.5 years that I was in college, I still remember this day. I was sitting in the cafeteria eating mashed potatoes because the caf had bomb mashed potatoes. And my roommate was sitting with me and his girlfriend at the time, and she said, Blake, have you gone to check your bid? And I was like, no. Like, because I was just kind of putting it off. Like, I didn't know.
It's nerve-wracking.
Yeah, it's nerve-wracking. It's so nerve-wracking. My roommate gets this like grin on his face, and he's like, you should really go look. And so I go, and I'm walking past the
So do they like post it on a board, like just who got bids or what?
No, you get a manila envelope, and each fraternity puts a bid in your envelope if they want you. Yeah. So as to not like do the old school sports team, like, is my name here? I guess. Yeah, I get my envelope, and
so would people get empty envelopes though?
Yeah.
Wow. That's,
Yeah.
ooh, wow.
Yeah. 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 Kind of
Dang.
sad. Yeah, dang. And there was one bit in there, and it was for Stay Up. And
You're like,
so, yeah, I was like, well, there's that. So I called my mom. I said, so I joined Sig Ep. And because I'd been talking about it a little bit over the first couple of weeks of school, and she said, that's great. You have to know my mom. My mom is very straightforward. I get that from her. She said, that's great. What does that mean? And I was like, it means I'm in a fraternity and I have a bunch of new friends now. And yeah, I know I rambled off a bunch of stuff just because I was in the moment and I had all this adrenaline from getting my bid and then calling her and all of this stuff. But I still use that moment where my mom said, that's great. What does that mean? I use that as a teachable moment for my undergrads about defining the rest of their experience and what happens over the next 4 years. So that's great. You joined SIGET. What does that mean? And what's it going to mean? So yeah, that was a big day for me, and
not bad.
I haven't looked back.
I didn't actually join SIGEP till my junior year.
Oh.
Yeah. So funny enough, I actually rushed Greek life sophomore year in the fall and rushed SIGEP. So like in the fall, it's like you just rush like one that you're like really interested in, and I was interested in SIGEP. So because like I had friends join the year before, and I'm like, that's what I want to do. So that fall, I was told at like night 3 of like going to like rush nights, we don't know if this is going to be a good fit for you. And so I stopped showing up. And I was pretty crushed. I was like, damn, that hurts. And in the spring, I tried to rush Kappa Delta Rho, which is like a much smaller fraternity. So they still have a national organization, but like they're much smaller. Didn't get a bid to KDR. And I was like, you know what? I'm done doing Greek life. Like, this is not my thing. But every single summer, like, I worked with orientation, and I was a campus leader, and I was pretty well known, and I was going to be an RA that fall. And that fall, like, a bunch of people on staff with me were SIGEPs. And they're like, you should come out to recruitment. I said, well, I already did that once, and, like, y'all didn't want me then. So, like, and they said, well, we weren't in at the time, so maybe you should reconsider. I'm like, I don't know. Like, this all seems just like, why do I need this? Like, that's my big thing. It's like, why do I need this? Why, like, what's the benefit? Because I have friends, I'm doing my own thing. But that fall, like, my junior year was, like, when shit started hitting the fan for me. Like, I realized that like, my dad, like, was getting remarried, and that was dramatic for me. I was finally starting to realize that, like, this whole gay thing isn't going away. And I'd been suppressing it. Like, I was kind of, like, in and out of the closet. Like, people knew that I was attracted to guys, but I was trying really, really hard to not date guys anyways. Junior year hit, so, like, I started therapy for the first time, and my friend said, come to Rush, and he says, like, what's the worst that could happen? And that's always, like, the thing that I remember is just, like, either the same thing will happen, and it'll confirm my suspicions about these assholes, is that they're just a bunch of assholes. And it's a good old boys club. And, like, also just, like, even then, even though I wasn't out, I was still pretty loud, and I was still fairly flamboyant. You know, I was the mess that you see before you now.
What a beautiful mess.
That's what the Lord is doing for me, you know? Just a beautiful mess. But the Lord uses me anyways. Thank God. And so I go, and I remember meeting a bunch of guys. And I think the thing that I saw and that I wanted was, like, this deep sense of camaraderie, and that these people like these guys had each other's back. And in the music department where I like spent most of my time, that wasn't the case. It was very competitive. It was very self-driven, and the idea of virtue, diligence, brotherly love, of people not just talking about values but living them out. I'm just like, that seems appealing to me. And I also hadn't been going to church for a long time, and so like I was kind of searching for some sort of spirituality in that mix too, and a lot of SIGEP's values being that were founded by mostly Baptist pastors. It was like, maybe this is a thing. And so by the end of the week, I was pretty set on like wanting it, and I actually like there was like a formal we're gonna hand out your midnights by invitation only, and I got invited, but I was an RA at the time, and I had a program I had to do. And I'm like, oh no. And so the guy was like, no, just meet me by the fountain at like 7:00 and I'll talk to you then. Not saying whether I got a bid or not. Just saying meet me by the fountain. I was like, ah! And so he rolls up and he like hands me an envelope and says, take this back to your room. Open it at 10:00. Don't tell anyone. And I'm like,
yes sir.
Okay. So we're sitting there and like they ask you, what does virtue mean to you? What does brotherly love mean to you? Like, what does diligence mean to you? And they're talking, and like I give my like poetic answers because I'm really good on my, I'm fast on my feet, and I'm a writer. So, the answer I said, well, Kevin, after talking with the brothers and deeply considering your desire to join Sigma Phi Epsilon, we believe that you actually don't belong anywhere. Pause, and I'm just like, what the I almost like go off, and then they said, you don't belong anywhere except for SIGAP. And I was like,
congratulations, you're the winner of this challenge.
Yeah, so it's that was how I joined, and it was lovely and wonderful, and I was so glad that I did it. And I always look back on those I don't know. I'm looking. I look back on those years, and it's like I think this thing that SIGAP taught me the entire time, like the biggest lesson I took away from it was like there is no wrong way to be a guy.
I was hoping you were going to bring up that statement because I heard you say it on Exvangelical, which is the reason why I was like, I would love to pick his brain about SIGAP stuff, just for that comment alone, just because it stuck out to me.
Yeah.
Because I was like, that's so true. And I've never heard anyone say it that way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I thought there was like, the thing I kept remembering was like, we had all sorts of, like, it's kind of like you said, there was all sorts of people that were in my chapter. So we had like, super brainiacs, and we had super fratty athletes. We had guys who were very emotionally driven, people who were, we were like especially like as far as like color of skin too, just like we had black people, Hispanic people. We had we were the first person on campus to have 3 Muslims in our fraternity, which was pretty dope.
Wow. Yeah.
And like so for a non-NPHC organization, we were fairly diverse, and as we grew, we also were the most diverse in sexual orientation too. Like I was Chris Ojeda before me was one, and then one of our founding fathers was another gay person. But like I remember like over the years, like people told me like, yeah, I voted against you initially because you were super flamboyant. I didn't think that was a good thing for us. So it was really cool to know that I had a hand in changing people's minds about gay people.
Right.
But it was I still didn't even come out till September 2015 really come out. But like my big brother, like when we were doing Hoop of Steel, when he graduated, said, Kevin, you're really gay, and I wish that you would just accept it because we love you because of that. And like I just started, I don't know. But yeah, it was like the idea that like there's no wrong way to be a guy was the thing that really stuck out to me. Like the ideas of just like virtue and diligence and brotherly love are not predicated on my machismo, and they don't have anything to do with whether I'm sleeping with a woman, and they don't have anything to do with whether or not I'm actually a good athlete. It's predicated on my character, my action. And what I think is very interesting is that I learned that in my fraternity. I was not learning that in church.
Oh.
So this is where like I think
you hit me right there.
Yeah. So at the same time I joined SIGAP, I also joined my church at the time because one of my fraternity brothers invited me, and I was like, well, I haven't been to church in a while, why not? And I just fell in love with my church. Like they were lovely and kind. and I finally felt connected to God, and like it was a very Pentecostal church. And so that brand of very expressive Christianity appealed to me. But I definitely learned in church that there was a right way to be a guy, a biblical man, so to speak.
Yeah.
And so it was very hard to like navigate that space, because like I felt conflicted a lot of the time.
But it's so strange. Just you saying that, the fact that you would have to hide who you are in a church and then walk out and go to your fraternity house and be the person you are. Mm-hmm. If that doesn't blow a stereotype out of the water, I don't know what does.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah. I had a really, really hard time. Like, I was definitely one person at church and one person on campus. And so, and that my church and my school were only like a mile away from each other too. So it was like a physical distance where I turned something on and off, and it was so sad.
Yeah.
So like, being that you gay Christian, like, did you always like want to pursue like a master's? Are you doing an MDiv at Vanderbilt?
I'm doing MTS actually at Iliff School of Theology now. I'm transferred. Mm-hmm.
Good for you.
Yeah. So I can pay my bills. It was either going to be Vandy or Emory, just because of the distance. It was pretty much, both were equidistant from home, 2 hours both ways. So I'm sorry, I just can't get down with Atlanta. It makes me anxious.
The city?
Like, I get so... Like, I can't... When I'm in, like, Marietta, like, my body starts tensing.
Well, that's because Marietta's awful.
Well, no, it means I'm in process of going through the portals of hell. Like, that's how I feel about Atlanta. And it's no shade to Atlanta. It's just, there's so many people and so many cars, and having to drive down there.
It's hell.
I would rather do anything else than drive through Atlanta.
Yeah, that's why I stick to my side of town most of the time. It's just like, we have to go 20 minutes to Midtown. Hell no. Yeah.
Let me circle back and answer your actual question. No, this was in the same way that being in a fraternity was not something I'd considered. This is something I'd never crossed my mind, and it was only I've always been it's always been hard for me to accept an answer. I want to know the why of things. So in Sunday school, I was always the one asking why. Like, why is that this way? Or that's not what I read. Like, maybe like just straight up being like, you're wrong about that. So I've always been like an avid reader. And so somewhere in high school, I started reading a lot into other faiths. We had to write about, in 10th grade, we had to do a project where we wrote about an ism or comparing isms. So I chose monotheism. And so I obviously looked at the big three, and I think it was in that moment where I kind of started going off on a path that I would never be able to turn. I would never be able to go back.
Yeah.
Once your brain starts expanding, like, it's pretty hard to to go in reverse. And
it's like, once you know something, you can't unknow something.
Right. I'd grown up with, and I consider myself very, not even sarcastic, #blessed, but I grew up with two Muslim friends from kindergarten through high school. And so I saw a side of Islam that a lot of people don't, especially in the South, haven't had that exposure to. 9/11 hits.
Wow. Yeah.
And I'm suddenly seeing I'm suddenly seeing all eyes go their direction. And one boy, I remember, grabbed my friend's hijab off of her head. Like, just straight up tore it off.
Wow.
And and like to this day, that sticks with me because she never did. Like, she didn't know what to do except to run to a bathroom.
Mm-hmm.
But just because she was so embarrassed, and I only heard about it like it was, secondhand news. Word travels fast in the hallways. But having an exposure to someone else's pain opened me up to, okay, this is all of this is about the human experience and how we live into capital T truth. And as long as you're doing good for others and you're not harming yourself or others, I think I was like, what's the problem? What's the big deal?
We'll be back with more of this conversation after this brief break. Like I said at the beginning of this podcast, I wanted to share with you a quick story about how the work we're doing here is reaching other folks across the globe. My friend Matthew Vines was in Mexico recently, and he met a new friend through Instagram and then later on that night they sent me the following message.
Hola, Kevin. Estamos en la Ciudad de México, y I just met Luis tonight through Instagram, actually. We had dinner, and he was telling me about how your videos were helpful to him in his coming out and just reconciling his faith and sexuality. So do you just want to...
Hola, Kevin. Mi nombre es Luis. Hi. I just wanted to tell that I'm a big fan of yours. I always follow and read your blogs. I follow you in social media. I think you're a great person, and I think you're an inspiration for many of us that are trying to live our sexualities and our faiths at the same time. I've heard about your story, and it's really inspiring, such as this guy. So, and thank you guys for what you're doing, and thank you for being an inspiration for us all. Bye-bye.
Ciao.
Adios.
Y'all, that's crazy. A real life person somewhere in Mexico City named Luis has been impacted by something that we've done here together. And yes, I say we because without the support of listeners like you, those videos don't get produced. These podcasts don't happen because they, like I said at the top of the show, it costs money and energy. And if I don't have your support, I don't pay my bills, is what it really comes down to. And I can't produce my content if I have to work like 60 hours a week, and I have been able to significantly lower how long I have to be in the restaurant because of your support, so I can pour into things like this. So my challenge to you is this: if you're somebody who's been listening for a while and you've got a couple bucks left over at the end of the month, I'd really love for you to throw it my way. It allows me to create podcasts and blogs and videos that speak to the queer and progressive Christian experience. And honestly, if you're somebody who has money to go out for drinks, eat out a couple times a week, maybe has the money that you spend on Netflix, I'm sure that you have a couple bucks to throw my way towards content creation. Honestly, any amount helps, and there are perks associated with being a sustaining partner, so what do you have to lose? Nothing. What do you have to gain? So many things. Friendship, notoriety, the feeling of giving back to your community, the feeling of making a dent in the cis hetero patriarchy. I mean, like, come on, y'all. Y'all, it's not too late to have a New Year's resolution, so why don't you make your resolution to be more generous? Become a sustaining partner, and let's make more content that speaks to the queer and progressive Christian experience together. You can learn more about that and all the sweet perks associated with by becoming a supporter at patreon.com/TheKevinGarcia. One more time, that's patreon.com/TheKevinGarcia. Okay, I'm done talking your ear off. Back to the show.
So all of those things kind of sent me down a path that was bucking up against this more conservative background where the Bible is, infallible, and right down to the last period. It's all God's word.
Yeah, and not one mark will be taken from the law. It says so, except for the fact that we left a lot of stuff out at the Council of Nicaea. Boom, 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 boom.
No, seminary talk. Yes. And so I was like, okay. I didn't think about it a lot. I was busy trying to get through college, and I was, and when I say, let me take that back. My definition of getting through college was drinking a lot, going to class, and hoping I didn't fail tests and papers. Which, for those listening, my drinking habits and my drinking problems were not caused by my fraternity. They were caused by, here's this thing that can numb my feelings and emotions about being in the closet. Yeah. I had in my brain a definition of what masculinity was and what it took. Never mind that I wasn't paying attention to the fact that some guys weren't drinking because they didn't want to. They weren't pressured to do so. And I tend to think of like a worst possible scenario. So if I'm drinking, I'm trying to fit in and fit a picture in my head of what masculinity is, which apparently is drinking yourself into oblivion. All while hiding the fact that I am gay. So it took me some time to really start changing who I was, like my drinking. Like I had a process where I would like how I would go about buying alcohol, like how if I was halfway done with a bottle, that meant I had to go to the liquor store to get another bottle to go ahead and start that one when I finished this bottle. Like I had a process. And one night I did not do that. And so I'd finished the bottle. I was like halfway drunk. And I got in my bed at the Sigma house, it was a bunk bed, crawled up into bed after drinking for a while. And I just started thinking about things. I thought about my nieces and nephews, and I thought about what am I doing? And I looked at our school's website, and I knew we had counseling. I didn't know what it entailed. And so the next day, I made a schedule an appointment with the alcohol counselor on campus, and that led to my first round of sobriety, which lasted about a year. And in that year, like, it's funny I use a term associated with alcohol or wine or whatever, but like if I could bottle a year, it would be that one. Everything was just magic. Like I had my first 4.0 that year, like that semester. I quit in March of 2010. I got a 4.0 that semester. I quit smoking in April. No. I kept smoking up until June. And then I got my heart broken, and I was about 215 pounds at the time. And I worked at the YMCA. And one day after my shift, I got on a treadmill, and it felt like I didn't get off for like 3 months. And I eventually, like, over the course of that summer, I lost 50 pounds. Yeah. And I was like in the best shape of my life. And mostly I did it for the look on his face when he would see me again, which was delivered. It was delivered unto me.
Hunty, got that snatched body, show it off.
It was so for the wrong reasons, though. Yeah. It wasn't because I needed to get healthy. It was because I wanted to make someone realize what they had. And then I got another 4.0, and then I graduated at the end of December of that year. And but it was in that final semester I took a course called the Bible and literature. And he pretty much said the first day, he said, if you treat this like Sunday school, you're not going to pass this class. Mm-hmm. And so we read the text as literature, as Elizabethan, like literature. We were reading the King James Version. We were looking at scholarly commentary, which had nothing to do with how this applies to my immortal soul. It was, this is the message Luke wanted his audience to hear. Right. This is the message Matthew wanted his audience to hear. Mm-hmm. And it completely changed my life. Like, it was probably that course that got me where I am now, because it was there where I thought, this can be questioned. This can be wrestled with. This can be interpreted in multiple ways. And there's a whole history behind it that I'm not aware of.
Yeah.
Until now. And so that was my spark where I said, so if that's possible, then me being gay might not be such a bad thing. Because if they were possibly wrong about this, then they're possibly wrong about this.
That's where it always starts. It's like there's always just like one little chink in the armor. It's just like wait a minute. And I think that's also the reason why so many people are afraid to question anything, because it is that same thing. If I'm wrong about this, what else am I wrong about?
Right.
And your whole structure can fall apart because you built a faith that is a house of cards. And you pull one card out of there, that whole thing is gone, and that's what Western Christianity looks like right now. It's just this very touchy, very fragile system that is ruthlessly defended. That's how it was for me. Of course, like I graduated and then I became a missionary, and
same.
Oh, truly? You became a missionary after you graduated?
No, I didn't. No, I did not. Yeah, no.
But it was. I was already okay with. I was mostly okay with myself. It's like I had like a 5-year college experience where like, or at least 3 of those 5 years where like I was loved for who I was, and so I knew what it felt like. Because of my fraternity brothers. It wasn't until I went to the other side of the world that I realized that, God loved me the same way. I think in many ways, like, SIGA saved me in a lot of ways, I think. I mean, I think about, like, the relationships I still have with some of those guys. It's, like, that shared bonding experience, like, and just someone, like, for, like, my big brother, raging atheist, as he would put it. But he loves me, like, so fiercely, and wants the best for me, and like we continue to keep up. We call at least once a week still. How interesting.
Super interesting. I think when I came out to my fraternity before I came out to my family, like I came out to SIGA, to my chapter before I came out to my parents. And I think that if my parents are listening to this, I would hope that they don't, blame themselves for any of that. But like, I think it speaks volumes about what a bunch of dudes, mostly straight, are capable of, and how much love they are able to show to another dude who just happens to like dudes. And I remember one brother, especially close to, he's the current AVC president. We joined together, and I told him, I was so, the night that Barack Obama won the election in 2008, I texted him, and he's a fairly laid back guy, loves NASCAR. Loves camping.
Praise God.
Yeah, he's not super country, but he lives He lives out there. And I told him, I was just so like inspired by that whole night that like I had tears in my eyes, and I just started texting, and I was like, I just wanted to tell you this because Barack Obama is going to be the president now, and because I'm feeling really hopeful about things for the first time in a long time, I'm gay. And he was like, he just responded back and said, cool. If anybody gives you any trouble, I'll beat their ass. And I was just like, yeah, thank you. Thank you so much.
And like, isn't it interesting that a group of men who is like associated, like, you know, the only thing you see about fraternities in the news is like, you know, when stupid shit happens, you never hear this story. You never hear about like, I found hope with this group of people. I found a shelter and a sanctuary when like my church could not be that sanctuary for me. And, you know, granted, like, you know, we had our own problems in our chapter, and like, especially like how certain guys treated women, but like for the most part, like we didn't take a lot of bullshit from guys.
Right.
And I think we lived up to the virtues that we claim to stand for in many ways. You know, I couldn't say like if the person I am now would have joined a fraternity, but like at the time I needed that. Like I needed a space to belong and to like, and to learn how to be a guy in many ways. Like I just wasn't comfortable in my own skin. It's very telling that, you know, a fraternity could be a space where one could learn to love themselves as God loves them. And yet in a church, I didn't learn that. And same, and you know, same in many respects, I assume for you, is like that's the place where you learned like love for self, because you learned how to love others well too.
Yeah. Which is actually, you were taking a little piece out of the Jenkins lesson, what we call the Jenkins lesson.
Yes, the Jenkins lesson.
Yeah. So, for those listening who have no idea what we're talking about,
go get yourself an L, Rob.
Yeah, I use good old Lifetime Responsibility of Brotherhood book, or the Black Book as we called it. So that's where my whole volunteer spiel starts, is with the Jenkins lesson. When I first joined, we had tests. So it was like, one of the questions was summarize the Jenkins lesson. And it was just like, essentially like, love God, love your neighbor, as yourself. And that was it. Like you got full credit. And so when I started at Vandy and I started taking these classes, it hit me like a sledgehammer. I was like, I have been going about this because I'd been volunteering with the chapter for a while up until that point. And I was like, I am going about this the completely wrong way. Because to a certain extent, I didn't understand. I didn't understand our rites of passage, and I didn't understand things like the Jenkins lesson until I finally started digging into Scripture. And I was like, there are so many lessons that are missed by not engaging those things. And so I was like, how can I, as a volunteer who is in divinity school, how can I translate that over into lessons and like, you know, teachings for these guys, aside from being the guy who's just like, why did you guys have an unregistered party, blah, 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 blah. Instead, going about it, okay, so the Jenkins lesson, which, quick rundown for anyone who's listening who has no idea what we're talking about. Carter Ashton Jenkins was one of our founders, main founder guy. Go Carter Ashton. And there's a story where essentially he's studying Greek, like a good New Testament student would be. I'm assuming, because
that's what he was studying.
Yeah. I'm assuming he was studying Greek to study the New Testament.
At Richmond College, 1901.
Look at him. And so he falls asleep, and he has this dream, and in this dream, like, the world is in chaos, and it's brother against brother, sister against sister, family members against each other, and friends and such. And then he wakes up and he falls back asleep, and everything is peaceful and beautiful and in harmony. And he asks the angel, there's this angel that's going along with him, and he asks, why was the change? What happened? And the angel doesn't say anything. The angel just points to scripture, and it's Matthew's version of the greatest commandment. Love the Lord your God with all of your whole being, and love your neighbor, as you love yourself. And that's the name of Sigma Phi Epsilon was born. So I looked at that and thought, I didn't fully understand this. I'm 28. 18-year-olds gonna get this? They're just skimming so that they know an answer. So I took this to a retreat last year and said, okay, guys, you've all read the Jenkins lesson. You've all answered that question. You've all given a one sentence answer. It was like, let's dig deep into this and see what we can pull out. It was like, Carter Ashton Jenkins falls asleep and has a dream. Come on.
That's freaking weird, first of all, if we take it.
First of all, he's placing himself in line with biblical dreamers, like the Josephs. And I'm like, he's putting himself in this almost prophetic role. And I was like, you get to scripture, anytime you get to scripture, you've got to ask what's going on here. What's the context? I was like, and furthermore, guys, we need to have a serious conversation about it, what it means to be a guy in 2016 and love yourself. And the room got really silent. And I was like, so here's the thing. I know what being a guy is like. I know your pressures and I know your anxieties. Are you taking care of yourself? How are you taking care of yourself? Because if you can't do that first, forget everybody else.
As RuPaul once said,
if you can't love yourself, how the hell
are you going to love somebody else?
Could I get an amen in here?
Amen.
Now let the music play.
Dear old fraternity. You're welcome.
Yes, that's brilliant.
Gosh.
But no, and then I told him, I said, whether this was the founder's intention or not, I said, okay, so how do you love yourself? I was like, where do you even start? I said, how about a sound mind? How about a sound body? How about a sound spirit? I was like, it's kind of there. We just never talk about it.
It's hidden in plain sight. The best wisdom is hidden in plain sight.
Yes. I said, so, go through, write these things down. And, as far as your mind goes, what are you reading every day? What are you taking in? Are you looking at social media and first thing in the morning? Guilty. But which has been studies have shown, which can lead to depression. So what are you feeding your brain? We talk about a sound body. Are you taking care of yourself? Are you eating right? Are you,
physically active in some way that makes you healthy?
Exactly. And spirit, what are you doing? You don't have to believe in God to be in our fraternity. That's one of the things we say. But what are you doing that brings you joy? What brings you goodness?
What connects you with your higher self?
Exactly. And so, if you're not assessing those things, you're going to wind up treating other people like garbage because you're treating yourself like garbage. And
out of the overflow of the heart, the mouth doth speak.
Yeah.
Man, I'm feeling so nostalgic right now.
I'm glad. I
remember leading retreats because what's so interesting too is all these things that you were saying. I remember I mean, I've had like these weird mystical experiences since I was a kid, and so like going through ritual, like observing the ritual like the second time after I'd already gone through it, I was able to see different things, like differently the deeper esoteric symbolism of everything. And those things taught me so much about like what it meant to follow Christ. To be quite frank, just like talking about Matthew 5:48, be perfect therefore as your Father in heaven is perfect. And I'm just like, what does that even mean? Like, how do we do that? And then we would always say just like, we're gonna live the ritual every day. Well, like, and we often talked about just like, we can never perfectly fulfill, you know, what the ritual stands for. We can never perfectly fulfill virtue, diligence, and brotherly love, but that does not mean I will not strive for it. And like that hit me. I was just like, oh, that's just like Matthew 5:48, be perfect.
Right.
And
it blows my mind because I understand why headquarters would want to back away from the conversation, because it can favor one tradition over another. But this is what I've told the guys before. I've said, you do not have to be a Christian. You do not have to be a person of faith to look at something and say, I think that's beautiful. Or I think there's something bigger there, and I'm willing to have that conversation. And that's part of having a sound mind, is being able to entertain conversations, but not accept what, you know. It's like, I can see that, because there's like follow that. But.
Yeah, because within all of this, it's there's universal truths that transcend just a particular religious experience or religious tradition. Next time you do a retreat, invite me. Let me come out there. I would so drive up in a heartbeat. You don't like. I'll just be an observer.
This is Kevin. He's just here to stare. It's like...
hey boys.
Kevin's going home now.
That was my conversation with brother Blake Haney. Blake is mostly off social media because he's one of those like normal people who likes to maintain his mental health. Weird, right? But if you want to, he's on Twitter at Blake Haney 615. That's Blake BLAKE Haney HANEY 615, and on the Instagrams at Blake Haney _ And if you want to learn more about our fraternity, you can go to sigma.org. Special thanks to all of my sustaining partners on Patreon. Honestly, couldn't do it without you guys. And once again, if you want to support the creation of this podcast and content like it, you can go to patreon.com/thekevingarcia. And on top of that, if you wouldn't mind, leave me a review for the show on iTunes. That simple act seriously helps with visibility and connecting other people with the work we're doing here. It takes 2 seconds. You can do it on your device, not while you're driving, honestly, but do it when you get to work, before you go in. Or maybe while you're on the toilet at work, because you know that you're using your phone while you're on the toilet. Be real with yourself. We all do it. You can connect with me on all the social media at thekevingarcia.com, and follow me on social media on the YouTubes, youtube.com/hello I'm Kevin. That's it. That's everything from me. Go see your therapist, take a nap, eat something yummy, talk to your family about the casual racism you have going on and the emotional energy that you expend trying to fight the cis white heteropatriarchy, and go see Black Panther this weekend. Those are all of my personal plugs. Okay, hopefully I'm going to see you at GCN. If not, I'll see you on the internet somewhere. I'll see you around. Once again, my name is Kevin Garcia. This was A Tiny Revolution, and I love you. Let's talk again soon, okay? Bye.